Thanks for joining us. It is Tuesday, and that's the day we set aside each week to go over Elko City news. And we're so pleased to have on this bye week, we have a break in council meetings. So we have Dale Johnson with us, and Dale is our Elko City Utilities Director. Dale, thanks for coming on the program today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We appreciate the opportunity. We're going to get caught up with Dale with his department is very busy launching and actually deep into the Water Modernization Plan. And so we'll try to get to some commonly asked questions, let people know the progress of that. There's some other great utility improvements that are happening, including in Elko's downtown with the sidewalk reconstruction project, which is so much more. So we're going to go over those things and more with you, Dale. Thanks again. We will look over the most recent council agenda just to kind of, tell people the highlights of that work, since you and I were both there.
It sounds good.
All right. So the city is in the process of hiring a new police chief. I believe applications closed for that last week. So there were, I think, at least 7 or so applicants from what I heard or understood. Whether or not that's what they actually end up doing the interviews with, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's quite a good pool of candidates for that position.
A big consideration for the future of the city. We already have a new civil engineer last week with Jan Baum, our city manager. We welcomed Sarah Schick to that position.
Yep, Sarah's hit the ground running. She's been out on a lot of our projects just to get her feet wet, and she's doing a real good job so far. She's going to be a real asset to the city.
That's fantastic news. That was a difficult position to fill, and it's always nice to find someone who wants to be here in Elko and do this job. And so the candidates for assistant city manager, we're still waiting on that position, but I think a lot of the groundwork has been done on that one, Dale?
Yeah, the groundwork's been done, and we are just waiting to hear what the outcome of that.
All right. So as soon as we know more, we'll pass that along. We appreciate listeners of this program on Tuesday to kind of get a jump on what's ahead, as well as a recap from the most recent meeting, which was last Tuesday. Amy Drost, an Elko High School art teacher, was named to the City of Elko the Arts and Culture Advisory Board. That was super cool. She got unanimous approval for that.
Yeah, she did. That was great.
Yeah, her students were featured and are featured during the Elko School District's art show, which is now on display through Saturday at the Northeastern Nevada Museum. So that's really neat. There was also, I do want to mention, there were other obviously things on the agenda, but the 2024, because these are awards that go to people who have contributed the previous year. So the 2024 presentation of the Mayor's Arts Awards. I love these awards. I'm grateful that the city continues to do them and that we always have people to recognize for this position, Dale. And so it was fun to see various people get their recognition.
Yeah, all the people who enter for those awards do a great job, and they come up with a great theme, and yeah, the awards turn out great. So
thanks to Christy Glass, she submitted the award-winning award this year. She created the award. She's a local artist, so Christy's selection was given to the recipients, including Sandy Beeler. Sandy is an amazing human being, just a wonderful person, very talented, and she got the In Support of the Arts Award, which is wonderful. She hosts a radio show for the arts on her stations that she works for Global One Media, so it was wonderful to recognize Sandy. And Janine Hoskins is the arts education recipient for 2024. She's the Elko High School drama teacher, and you can't even begin to say how many lives she's changed and influenced with that position. Yeah, she does a great job there at the school. I know she'd want me to plug the Addams Family, which is coming up May 8th. So get those tickets. Support students. Some of the seniors are graduating, and this will be their last theatrical production at Elko High. Walt Lovell was on hand to represent Elko Community Concerts, which got the award for Best Organization. So that was really neat, too. Yep. Yeah. They do a great job as well. Travis and Cammie were actually vacationing. They were up in Canada, so they phoned it in, which was kind of cool, too.
Yeah, it was cool to see them on the air there in the meeting.
They gave us a little Skype, but Travis and Cammie would love us to remind you that you can go online now and subscribe to the Elko Community Concert Series. That's a wonderful organization and brings us just top-notch talent from around the world sometimes right here in Elko. And then Cynthia Delaney, who was our beloved local artist. She's been a teacher. She's been an artist and inspiring generations of folks. She is from rural Nevada. She has moved on to other parts of Nevada these days, but we all know and love Cynthia, and we're happy to see that she was recognized too, Dale.
Yeah.
So that was a great, I know I belabored it a little bit, but just because it's really cool to be able to enjoy all the art that we have. I know there's a big 250 project that's coming up. I think we're going to get a smaller scale We the People sign, and that'll be part of our downtown renovation that's coming up. More to come on that from Arts and Culture Advisory.
Yeah.
Cool.
Doing well.
Yes. And as far as anything else that jumps out on the agenda, I know we want to dedicate some really quality time here. We can always go back if we need to fill, Dale, but unless there was anything else that you think, the sidewalk project was approved. That's a $2.2 million bid. So that is big, good news.
Yeah, it is. That project was approved, and that should be coming up here this summer. There's actually a lot of water components in that project. We're moving a bunch of the water lines to the businesses to a newer main in the corridor, and we will abandon the existing main that those services come off of, and then again, all those businesses will get meter pits and go on metered rate at that time.
And Dale, it's important to upgrade the infrastructure because, does it help these businesses to enhance what they're able to offer in those buildings?
A lot of it's the water pipeline ages and things like that. That pipeline's probably close to 100 years old down there, so
it affects pressure.
It can affect pressure. Occasional leaks from those pipelines and things like that, and it's just better for water quality as well.
That's good to hear. That part of that sidewalk renovation at $2.2 million includes a lot of what we won't see. It's beneath the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that should begin sometime this summer. I know that we'll hear from our city planner, Kathy Laughlin, on that as the date draws near. She is very determined and very capable about doing that. She's communicating with the Chamber of Commerce, Dale, and just going to make sure all the merchants are as informed as possible and we can get through this project.
Yeah, that's going to be a big part of the project, coordinating, sidewalk closures and things with those businesses downtown and making sure they still have access and they can still provide a service to the community.
Dale Johnson is our guest today. He's the City Utilities Director, and he's giving us an update on city news. After last week's regular meeting, we'll have a couple of weeks in between the regular City Council meetings. So, Dale, give us a progress report, would you, on the Water Modernization Plan?
So the Water Modernization Plan is ongoing. It's a pretty large project where we're deploying meters throughout the city, and a bunch of those will end up having to have meter pits installed as well. Currently, right now, we're just installing meters in existing meter pits, and we started that venture in March. To date, we have 334 meters installed. We're currently working on Courtney Drive off of West Jennings. We'll be heading up Cottonwood and down Infield in those areas there. Another part of that project is the actual modernization of it. We actually have our leak detection project being deployed this week. They started deploying the sensors out in the distribution system yesterday, and we have our staff out monitoring that with the vendor. So we'll be looking over the next week to see if we find any leaks.
And you use technology for that, right, Dale?
Yes, it's the system that we're doing the pilot study on are sensors that we connect to the fire hydrants, and then they basically listen to different noises at night through the pipelines, and based on the frequency, they can tell if it's a leak or things like that. Really
interesting. And here's the other question that we hear about this. So folks that already have of the 334 water meters installed, they should notice a difference in their water bill, right?
Yeah, they'll end up noticing some differences in the bill. Typically in the winter months, you'll have a lower bill than in your summer months, and it all depends on your consumption. If you have a larger yard in the summer, you may pay a little more, but in the winter when you're not irrigating, you'll have a lower bill typically.
So part of this is also the awareness of water use to help people understand the importance of conservation. I mean, this is the desert.
Yep, we're in one of the driest states, so we need to conserve as much as we can.
And our water comes from an unknown aquifer. I mean, it's just an unknown supply. We never know, right?
Yeah, we're in the Humboldt Basin, so we do know that, obviously. We have deep water wells. Our wells are 300 to 700 feet deep. But just because we have wells in the ground doesn't mean there's water in the ground to supply those wells. So that's the concern.
And going forward, because water is what we need to grow.
Right, and it's pretty sparse in the desert.
You know, it was brought up during council that some people have wondered, why is the city, if water is so precious, we're letting a lot of water out of our tanks, right? There's a process going on right now.
So that's flushing our wells. So every summer, we have to prepare to turn on the wells that sat all winter. So part of our EPA requirements is to chlorinate those wells, let it sit over a time period, and then we have to flush that chlorine out of those wells. Another thing, in flushing those wells, we have to dechlorinate those wells because the water is running to the storm drain system and to the river. So there's a lot of parts in that go environmentally for doing this process. But then on the backside of that, we have to take back T samples. We have to pull 2 back T samples within 24 hours of each other, and they both have to pass, or we got to go back and rechlorinate and do the whole process over. But each day we have to turn the wells on, let them flush, pull the samples, then they'll shut off again. And the next day we go back, turn them back on and pull the samples again.
So that's what's been going on if people have noticed that.
Yeah, okay. That's it. And a lot of our wells are plumbed to the storm drain system already, so some of the wells you see the water coming out and some of them you don't. Some of them are pretty well in the public eye, and those are the ones that are not plumbed to the storm drain system.
Oh, okay, so they just see some gushing going on.
That's correct.
And so, Dale, again, with water modernization, if people do have any questions, say their water bill comes in high, or what's the best thing to do?
If you feel your bill's high, just let us know. We can come out and check things. With these new meters, we can and we'll be able to show the customer on our tablets and things if there's daily consumption. We'll even be able to tell when they're using water, time of day, any time of night. So that's one thing that with the modernization we're really going to be able to focus in on and give customers a real good idea of where their usage is.
All right. Good news. Dale Johnson is our City Utilities Director as we're getting an update on that water modernization. Every Tuesday when we have an update, we know where you're going with the next neighborhood. As you said, you're going where the water pits really already are. Some properties you may have to go back in and install those. So.
Yeah, and we're finding where some of the older pits are. We're finding leaks in those pits, so we are trying to replace those as we go as well. So, yeah, it's a pretty big project.
And you're using local crews.
We are. We're using city staff mostly for this portion of the project. So, yeah.
And that should result, obviously, in savings, because when you go out to contract on something, it can be pricey. So.
Yeah, and having a contractor install the meters is pretty difficult because they would have to use our system to install them, and our staff's familiar with the system and how it works, how to program the meters, things like that.
Well, thanks for leading and encouraging, inspiring the staff to do that, because that's obviously, it's a big job, Dale. Yeah. So cool.
Another portion of that project is more of the modernization type, and it's using software to predict pipeline failures. So that portion of the project's also underway. With that predictive failure, it'll tell us if a pipe's going to fail how many times this year, or if it's expected to fill tomorrow, really. And then we would be able to budget for pipeline replacements and things like that. So it's another way we're using the modernization to really hone in on our infrastructure.
Thanks for those updates, Dale. Again, we'll be talking more about it. Obviously, this is a project that will probably take a couple of years, right?
Yep, it's going to take a few years.
Yeah, so we're underway. And another update from the Utilities Department is in the Elko Mountain Booster Station. And this is something, was this paid for with the ARP money? And yeah.
It is an ARPA project, and the booster station should be coming online within the next month. It has been approved by the state to be put into service. We've just been waiting on the generator to make sure it's up and running, and we definitely don't want to have a power failure and then not be able to pump water. So once that portion's complete and tested, then we'll be sending out notices to the residences up North Stitzel, that subdivision that is called Tower Hills. That subdivision will be going on that booster station. So,
and the hospital gets a redundant supply, right? That was one of the big concerns.
That will be the second source for the hospital coming down Powder House Road and Elko Mountain Way. So.
And I guess the news is, could this help fuel, or I guess water, future growth, right?
It can. That opens up our 5,600 pressure zone along Errecart, Elko Mountain. So that will be able to supply those areas where we couldn't supply water in the past.
Just add a couple $1,000,000 for tanks, right?
Yep, yeah, that's the next thing. With the booster station, that'll buy us some time until there is some development to drive those tanks and fund them.
So let's get an update, too, on at least phase one of the Errecart Extension, which people think is a road, Dale, and it's actually water, right?
Yeah, it's a water line project. With water line projects, we do complete the roadway alignments because the pipelines usually end up in the roadways. So that's a big portion of this project, probably a larger portion than the water line itself. But that portion of the project's pretty well wrapping up. The hydro-seeding company showed up yesterday, and they're on site today. The problem with today, it rained all weekend and snowed, so it's pretty muddy up there. So we really don't want them out there on the really nice bladed roadway. So
sinking in
and causing ruts. So they're kind of on hold.
Okay. So maybe they can enjoy Elko until it dries up a little bit, hopefully. So by seeding those areas, those what look like roads will kind of disappear for now.
Well, Dale? It's the seeding for the slopes.
Oh, perfect.
Where they did the cuts and fills.
To help with the erosion?
It's all based on erosion control. They've also installed wattles, which keep water from running down the banks there. They've put topsoil back on the banks that they plowed off when they first started the project. So
the good news is that eventually that should be a road. There'll be a template in, but that's just a much bigger project than Elko has money for.
Yeah, that's correct. At this point, it's just a pretty large access way. It's not going to have gravel or pavement on it or anything like that. But
have people been driving on it, Dale? And if so, is that okay? Or what should we tell
There
people?
has been people out there on it, especially ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles. It's a fun place to go out and ride around.
And that's okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Cool.
Yep, just try not to tear up those slopes and things like that. And if it's wet out there, try not to be out there because it does cause a lot of ruts in the roadways.
Well, that's really good to know. So that's, again, in the area known as Errecart that will eventually connect to the Errecart Boulevard, Errecart Bridge area where the sports complex is. And I have to say, I stopped in there Saturday during Cleanup Greenup, Dale, and great crowd. People love that sports complex. They were so excited to be there. A lot of families.
Yeah, it's a really nice complex. They just finished all the concrete work out there, so that's turned out really good. And they were planting trees this weekend, so that's
nice.
Another bonus to the sports complex.
Yeah, I should say, because I'm still putting together, I told Kirsten Siratek that, we would do a final story because people are still out there with their landfill vouchers. She had something like 800 volunteers, Dale.
Yeah, there's a lot of volunteers. You get those vouchers, so now you can go clean up your own property and have that voucher to take your stuff to the landfill.
And that counts toward the tons of debris and waste and stuff that might have ended up where it shouldn't in the landfill. So that all counts toward this big project.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Kirsten did a really great job, I think, too, by the way. I'm just saying, I always like to give people credit for doing those hard things, and especially when it's something new to them. And she really managed that. So.
Yeah, she really jumped in and took that head on and has done a great job.
So thank you, Kristen. She's the city environmental director, I think, environmental services coordinator. Thank
yes.
you. Oh, I don't want to make her a director before her time because she wouldn't. Yeah. So let's also move on to the Exit 298 lift station. Construction's continuing on that.
It is. It's slow progress right now. We're able to do the bores under 535 there at the truck stop. So there was 2 bores for 2 pipelines that go under the highway.
And this is about sewer.
This is about sewer.
Okay.
That is correct. This is a lift station that'll pump the sewage from Exit 298 where Komatsu and Coach is, the trucks, Golden Gate truck stop, Coca-Cola, those businesses will all go on this lift station, and we'll be able to service them sewer back to the wastewater plant.
So it also begs the question, because we have the sports complex. Oh, I'm sorry, not the sports complex. We have a county shooting area there, the shooting range. And then I think there's some other area that I know Curtis Moore, the county's natural resources director, is working on for some other recreation. And then there's some area that heads up toward Cattle Drive, which is north along Mountain City Highway, Dale. I mean, is this lift station capable of growth for that area?
It is. That's where the 2 pipelines come in. Right now, we're installing a 6-inch pipeline and a 10-inch, and the booster station or the lift station will be sized to where we'll use the 1 pipeline right now during low flows, and as the entire system builds out, we could use both pipelines or switch to the 10-inch pipeline. So, yeah, we're sized it for future growth all the way to encapsulate that Section 18 and anything that develops between Exit 298 and Mountain City Highway.
Wow, that's incredible. So that could be subdivisions. It could be more sports and recreation.
Yeah, it could be subdivisions. A lot of industrial still can be built out that way, so that would be a benefit as well.
Yeah. I know that there was talk initially of having the proposed event center, which I know the Elko Convention Center is now the E-Center. So I think there may be a shift to calling it it's a huge livestock event center with accommodations for Silver State Stampede. Haven't gotten an update on that, but I know they're coming up on deadlines. But some people thought this Section 18 would have been a perfect spot for that. So
I believe they looked at that spot for the event center, but they've looked at some other sites as well, and maybe we'll be going with a different site.
Yeah, we think we know where it's going, but there's deadlines everywhere, right? Yeah, there's always challenges to anything that's worthwhile. I guess that's the way to put it. So anyway, don't want to throw anything out there that's not, but I know that was considered at one point. So Exit 298 lift station construction is underway, and again, that should fuel or at least provide for a lot more growth. And we all know how important it is to have that sewer infrastructure. So we also want to remind everyone that with all the time that we have left, that as we talked about water restrictions are really important.
Yeah, those are important. They are coming up as well. June 15th is when water restrictions start. They run through September 15th. With water restrictions, there's only hand watering on Monday. We try to let the city parks and ball fields and city infrastructure use the water on that day because they're really watering a lot of those larger fields. And then Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday is for even addresses. And odd addresses can water on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then our watering times are typically not throughout the day, in the heat of the day. So prior to probably 8 a.m. and after 5 or 6 p.m. at night was probably the best time to do your watering.
So whether you're using sprinklers or if you have an automated system, you just adjust that. It's easy enough to do. You can make the adjustment within the automated irrigation system, and it will turn on and off automatically for you.
Yeah, that's correct. Most of the sprinkler timers, you can pick even odd days, select your own times, what days you want to water, number of times you want to water in that day. So
set it and forget it.
Yep, that's right. And we don't have a restriction on how much you water on your watering days, so keep that in mind. If you want to water 3 or 4 times a day during those days, that's up to you. Just try to make your watering schedule fit into those schedules.
All right. So those water restrictions, again, will begin June 15th through September 15th. And as always, the city, you have lots of notification on social media. I think in the past I've even gotten something in the mail. It just depends.
Yeah, that'll come out on the billings with your bill, and then we do have it on Facebook, city website, different places like that, and of course the radio show.
Yeah, absolutely. We will keep talking about that. We set aside every Tuesday to get updated on city news, and we appreciate, Dale, that you're coming in this week as the city utilities director. We feature the various departments. Jan Baum comes in, our city manager, during the council days, because then she likes to get everybody, ready for that afternoon meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So. Having those updates before those meetings is pretty big. And then it also gives the community an opportunity, if they hear something on the radio, to be able to show up to those meetings.
Yeah, we really try. We've been doing this program in particular for decades. Mayor Mike Franzoia was actually the first city mayor to say, we need to do this show. And I also like to credit the late Reverend Ralph Bolin, because Reverend Bolin was apparently a small town mayor in California, and he had a radio show. And so he suggested it to Mayor Franzoia, who brought it to us. So
that's
pretty cool history,
Pretty cool history, yeah.
Yeah. Reverend Bolin had said at the time that it really made a difference in just the relationship that the community had with the city. And that's what we want to continue to do, because we should all feel so proud of our city. I know when I was sitting there and there was a presentation, Dale, on what might be the future of City Hall, because the site was recommended and approved by the council. The preferred site to build a new City Hall is on the existing site, right?
That's correct. It'll be out behind the existing City Hall, but keeping that centralized in that area is probably a great idea.
I think so too, because it's really the hub of activity. We've got our gorgeous parks, which are just packed with families and kids. I can't imagine if we didn't have that park space. Our museum is going to expand. Thank you to Nevada Gold Mines. We have our gorgeous E-Center, which is also working on the next 50 years of events. But this cool thing, Ralph Negron, our development manager, he talked about the Lombard Conrad vision, because some of us that have been going to City Hall now for decades, we wouldn't want to really say goodbye to our building, because there's been so much that's happened there. It's so meaningful. But he talked about a way to preserve it and maybe make it an amphitheater, like the existing structure of the City Hall.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about at the meeting Tuesday night. Sounds like a great idea if we could use any of that existing building or infrastructure there.
Yeah, it would really mimic, the front of the building, which has that great curvature. Arnie Perhonen designed it. And then, that has that feeling of theater sort of inside, and it could be grassy, and instead of a ceiling, it would be the sky. I don't know. I just thought, and we would keep our 9/11 sculpture, which is so important to us.
That's right. Incorporating those elements are really going to be great for that site.
Yeah, and making a nice place could be an outdoor place for city employees to go and have their lunch, and during great weather. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. And of course, the community could use it too with the proximity to the existing parks. It sounded beautiful. And that's why we hire architects, because they have vision and they understand these things. Yeah.
Yep, and they know how to design it and to incorporate things like this.
Yeah. So that was talked about at City Hall. This is not my big fat idea. I'm just thinking it sounds great. Well, Dale, anything else that jumps out, either from the recent council agenda or that you and your department, you have a small but mighty staff, what they're working on?
Yeah, we have about 22 people in the department with myself. They do a great job in taking on the modernization and all these ARPA projects over the last few years. They've done a really good job.
And just want to say thank you to the city staff, those of you who are going out, because you are being very thoughtful and careful about your installation, because you know that you're in people's yards and that people are sensitive about that sometimes. And we've had some contractors that weren't from here and they maybe weren't as careful or considerate, right?
Yeah, and if anyone has any issues or questions related to the meter pits being installed or the water meters being installed, don't hesitate to reach out to my department or City Hall, and we can get those issues taken care of in a timely manner.
Yeah, he'll jump right on that. And always know that city staff are going to be identified. They're going to be in official trucks.
That's right. Official trucks, and all the water department staff wears a uniform that they're well identifiable.
Okay. So again, if you have any questions or concerns about the water meters going in, please call. If they want to call the water department directly, it's 738
775 777 7135 is our billing department.
Oh, thank you. That is the billing. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Or you can call my office is 775 777 7210.
Okay. Oh. I think that's kind of like the police number too. Yeah. Or I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, Dale, thank you so much for being on the program today. I hope we got to all the issues you were hoping to.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We've been talking with Dale Johnson. He is our Elko City Utilities Director here on Elko Live today.